Is it too late to talk about March releases? I don't think so. Either you're playing your backlog or are deep diving on Elden Ring and Horizon Forbidden West, so I think there's still time to talk about some of the gems that will come out in March 2022. I'm Leo's Luna, and now I'm fully recovered and ready to talk about all these fantastic releases. But before I start, let me recap all February releases I've missed on my last video, whether studios announced their releases late of my schedule or simply I don't have the knowledge to talk about them. So what games are you currently playing? Which ones do you expect the most in March? Please write it down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. Shadow Warrior 3. What started as an old school shooter is now a renowned reboot trilogy with some interesting and gory takes. Probably fans of Doom Eternal might want to scratch a bit on this third installment and give it a try due to its tied-in mechanics and visceral gameplay. Shadow Warrior was always a franchise that I always wanted to play, but there's always something in the way that pushes me back to do it, even if it has a lot of competition in the field. I think Wild Hot Games clearly knows that, and it feels and focuses the game on the fun and dumb jokes here and there, which kind of a staple for Developer Digital as a publisher. PC and it is the obvious choice for me to play the trilogy, but feel free to choose the one that suits for you the most. Conan Chop Chop. So this game looks like a cool surprise for those party nights with loved ones. Announced like forever ago and delayed up until this month, Conan Chop Chop is basically a beat'em up with auto-generated level designs and a pretty campaign that you can play solo or with friends, via local or online. To be honest, there's not that many beat'em ups like this similar to Castle Crashers or Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, where you build your own character and chop everyone in the process. And there's simply no excuse if you own a PC or Nintendo Switch, since you can try the free demo. Now, I didn't grow up with Conan, but I'll say it's a good fit for those parents that would love to introduce the world to their kids, although I wouldn't go that far. Babylon's Fall. Well, this game reminds me that the show is all about highlighting titles that might need some shine down the road, but I'm not sure what to say about Babylon's Fall. I mean, Platinum Games seems to be really interested in building games as a service, or at least with longer hours of gameplay, similar to Genshin Impact or Lost Ark, although those two are free to play. Babylon's Fall feels like that, a third-person action RPG oriented specifically on defeating bosses and NPC encounters, but there's something missing in the formula. Like some of the charm or tight mechanics that we all love from Platinum, and that left me thinking that maybe sometimes it's better to stick with your original idea. In any case, Square Enix left us this free demo to try it out on PlayStation. I believe some people will be inclined to try it out only because it resembles some of the Nier Automata's fighting system and part of the art style, but I might be cautiously optimistic. And don't get me wrong, I love Platinum Games, but even I consider there are times that the studio feels totally off. In any case, I'll probably be supporting them with Bayonetta 3 and their upcoming Kaiju game. Gran Turismo 7. This is my most anticipated game of March for so many reasons. My memories playing racing games date back to the first two Gran Turismo games, especially the second one that had a lot of cars and racetracks with a very solid driving mechanic never seen before. After that, my family pretty much jumped to Dreamcast and Xbox, and in a way, I did not abandon the genre with Project Gotham Racing, Forza Motorsport, Rally Challenge, and many other racing games down the line that were on those consoles, but there's something that only Polyphony Digital could do on a game like Gran Turismo 7 that other games might not capture, and with the amount of hours I tried it, it definitely feels like the ultimate simulation experience with a well-suited guided campaign that keeps you rewarded and bombarded in a good way with beautiful presentation, history of cars, and a lot more. You progress the game on a campaign style by traveling on a cafe, yes you heard that right, and earning cars from racing history and unlocking new tracks. At the same time, you're slowly learning how to drive each of the current classes you're competing with. So rather than feeling stressful, it really invites you to stock in the world of car collecting and racing. It's not the fiesta extravaganza that Forza Horizon 5 grants you with the greatness of Mexican scenery and a vast catalog of cars to collect as you explore, but it doesn't need to be that way. Gran Turismo 7 is more linear and guided with very pristine presentation. It's more like that good old Scotch whiskey you like to impress with your friends with. And oh yeah, this game is so beautiful to look at. It's just like how I imagine it to be on PlayStation 5 and a lot more. Some people say you have to spend a lot of time or currency to earn better cars, but I haven't reached that level, so I can't comment on that. You can play online, but I haven't tried that, and there's also a 2-player local mode, which for sure not many racing games have these days. Actually, Mario Kart 8 is the other I'm thinking of. Oh yeah, on PS5 the game is running at 4K native 60 FPS during gameplay, but on 30 FPS with ray tracing on replays and cutscenes if you choose the quality mode, which is for sure the way to go. Some folks told me the PS4 looks pretty good, although you might stick with slower load times. Triangle Strategy. This tactical RPG is another anticipated game of mine. It basically follows the thread of other Square Enix releases like Octopath Traveler, where it gives tribute to highly praised subgenres in the RPG realm in favor of what they recently called as HD 2D art style. It may not be Final Fantasy Tactics, but it's original, it feels unique, and I love it. Similar to Fire Emblem, you pick different characters and factions and try to advance in the story while battling on an isometric point of view. Luckily, there's a free demo with the first 3 chapters of the campaign, and you can also keep the progress of the complete game if you make up your mind about it. What lies in the multiverse? This game has an interesting take on 2D platforming and what they're calling a dramatic comedy. Basically, the main character discovers a way to traverse between parallel worlds. Each world is a unique version of its own with crazy aesthetics. There are also other companions such as this genius who help you or apparently not on your journey, and I believe there's a right way to tell a story in 2D pixel. Last time I enjoyed a comedy drama was on The Messenger, a fantastical side-scroller making a tribute to Ninja Gaiden games while making its own path to an expanding franchise. What lies in the multiverse reminds me of games like Braid or Portal also, and for sure I can't wait to try this one. Chocobo GP. Did Nintendo do this move on purpose? Was Nintendo actually so afraid of Chocobo GP that it decided to cement it with his Mario Kart 8 booster course? I don't think so. I guess if you're a big fan of arcade racers and own a Switch, then you're in luck. Final Fantasy is so popular in Japan that of course it is going to release some of the titles for the whole family. Chocobo GP resembles a lot of the elements from original Chocobo Racing back in PlayStation 1. There's a story mode and the option to play online and locally, and Square Enix even released a live mode for free so people can try online mode and a somewhat limited single player mode, although you can only join lobbies, not create them, and the mode was specifically made to join local sessions with different switches. I don't like the idea of microtransactions on a game oriented for kids, but I'll say it wouldn't hurt to at least try the light version. And extra kudos for Square Enix to demo all their stuff. WWE 2K22. So I'm not a big fan of wrestling these days, but I do enjoy trying out every fighting game as possible. Plus, they decided to take 1 year break to rework this. Something very strange to see on huge IPs like WWE. Something I applaud as well. Apparently, visual concepts, redesigned gameplay, new controls, and a lot of great features. A lot of superstars are back, like The Rock, Sebastian. There's a manager simulator, a brand new storyline with your own character, factions, and a lot more. Plus, I know there's this tradition of purchasing the first game of a recurring generation entry to the new generation, so to all of you, enjoy and let me know down in the comments about it. Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. It's time to beat chaos! So hear me out before you roll your eyes. But this game could actually be good. Developed by Team Ninja, the folks who brought us Neo 1 and 2, they're pretty much bringing out their top tier art direction and combat to Final Fantasy world. Yes, the main character, which by the way is called Jack, may look generic, but somehow I believe that's totally intentional. And from what I tried on the demos, it's an action RPG with a lot of hack and slash, and you have to build affinities with different weapons and provide different styles and combos in action. You can't do that much with your comrades, but at least you can play the entire campaign up to 3 players in co-op. Once again, I don't have any high hopes for the story, but when it comes to fighting mechanics and great boss fights, it really feels it will deliver. I saw that it's kind of a sort of the reboot of the first Final Fantasy game, which kind of makes sense considering there's Garland around and probably Square Enix has some plans on rebooting the franchise the same way. I'm all into hack and slash in combat RPGs, and it would be nice to see other Final Fantasy games with the same formula. Phantom Breaker Omnia. So this is basically an expansion of an old game with tons of new features and brand new characters. There's a brand story mode for each of the characters, English and Japanese support, and upcoming languages like Spanish, German, and so on. It's a fighting game that I haven't tried before, but it's intriguing for me at least, more oriented on the use of weapons similar to Blast Blue. It feels more like a charming game with a AA budget, something that is really difficult to see in the fighting genre and I can really appreciate. Tunic. One of my most anticipated games of the year has finally arrived, and I'm so glad it's on Game Pass so many more people can try it out. From what I tried on a demo a while back, it's an action-adventure game with isometric camera and a lot of inspiration with classics as Zelda or From Software games. I honestly don't like to do comparisons because there are a ton of elements the small studio, for instance, introduced that feel very unique. For instance, you're traveling to a lot of places with no dialogue or no clues to go, only your menu and some hints here and there. Combat can be challenging, it's simple and very well crafted. And of course, there are a lot of dungeons to explore. I think this would be a perfect fit if you liked an Elden Ring detox, for instance, although I might be one of the weird folks who feels at home while playing Elden Ring. Persona 4 Ultimax. Another remaster is back in action, and this is where Arc System Works started implementing their vibrant art direction to other IPs and eventually brought us games like Dragon Ball FighterZ and the excellent Guilty Gear Strive. A totally unexpected game from a beloved RPG franchise is back, and it has a story mode with a top-notch cinematics similar to the anime version of Persona 4, and of course the whole roster of P4 and P3 as well. Another fighting game I haven't got the time to dig in, but now I'll certainly will, even more with the studio updating the netcode to Guilty Gear Strive, which basically means the online game will play like rock solid, something that is vital to fighting games, and the studio has perfected it on Guilty Gear Strive. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Curse Pass. Oh boy, here we go again. Is this a controversial topic? Let's see. So basically Nintendo ported a Wii U game with not much of a change back in 2018, and up until then, the Mario Kart franchise is breaking a staggering amount of records. More than 30 million copies sold. So many people were expecting a new release. But, well, similar to what happened to Among Us, I guess you can't blame an overwhelming success, and it actually makes sense to release an expansion if a lot of people already have the game. The booster pack adds up to 48 tracks, most of them remastered from previous Mario Kart games, which will be releasing in 6 waves of 8 courses each. You can get it for $25 or get the Nintendo Switch Online expansion, which already includes the complete package. It's insane! An excellent way to give value to Switch Online as well. Returnal Ascension. So let's go far away from your comfort zone with the 3.0 update of Returnal. Look, if we're talking about paid expansion, then we need to talk about the free updates that are worth the look, right? I mean, Housemarque deliver a solid and challenging roguelike shooter with horror elements in between. I myself decided to leave the game on pause due to its punishing difficulty, and maybe it was not the right time for me. With the Ascension update, you can now finish the game with up to 2 players in co-op mode. You call your friends or strangers on the fight. Although the game might require you to keep together to focus on cooperation, the good part is that you can actually revive the other player, which definitely eases the pain. And yeah, it will be back to finish and solo and co-op as well. Player assistants will keep the progress and win xenoglyphs and lock for themselves, while the host will advance his or her campaign. And there's also the Tower of Sisyphus, which is basically an endless tower boss rush that will unlock more elements to the story as well. But the more you traverse, the harder it gets. You can also compete with others on a classic leaderboard, which stays true to the previous games from Housemarque. Pretty cool. Rune Factory 5. So Rune Factory is one of those franchises that it kind of actually has everything and is well regarded for its execution. It's an action RPG with hints of strategy, dating, and farming simulator. This time, the story takes place in the town of Rickbard, and you must help the town defend itself from mysterious events that will endanger some runes that ease the balance between humanity and nature. Most of the time you play an action RPG, but you also have romantic options and need to build your home and harvest special items that will help you on your adventures and your economy. And I know Exit Games have a special place for this game. I've heard they wouldn't want another title, but I'm so glad they're all in with this. Funny enough, Rune Factory 4 was released the same year as Stardew Valley. Both games are essentially the same, but the focus with Rune Factory goes more into battle and strategy, which is something I truly respect. So if you want a charming adventure to dig on the Nintendo Switch, Rune Factory 5 is the one to go. A Memoir Blue. If you're looking for a wholesome and short experience, then I believe A Memoir Blue will fill that void. Cloisters Interactive brings us this narrative adventure with a mix between 2D and 3D art. The story is about Miriam, a swimmer champion and a strange son from years ago that will trigger a lot of things from her turbulent past and a complicated relationship with her devoted mother. At least that's what we know so far. The two things I like to point out: I love short stories that don't take that much of your time, and I love how personal and emotional it already feels. I think there are a lot of things to talk about everyday life and the socio-cultural aspects surrounding us. Lumote the Mastermote Chronicles. And speaking of wholesome, let's talk about Lumote. From what I gather on trailers and press kits, it's basically a puzzle adventure with some neon cuteness all around. You traverse across different underwater scenarios with Lumote, a small creature with the ability to possess other creatures. This will be crucial to traverse the different scenarios that will bring variety in solving puzzles. Levels are divided by towers and accompanied by fantastic electronic soundtrack. This reminds me a bit of Super Mario Odyssey mechanics, and plus, as a fan of games like Pod, Baba Is You, and The Gardens Between, I think this will be an enjoyable experience to try it out. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. More cozy games to bring out to the table, and I believe for the first time it is an entire 3D world from Kirby. This time our Fluffy and devourer friend will traverse a post-apocalyptic land with lots of familiar objects to the real world. As always, Kirby swallows enemies to absorb new abilities, and for the first time, Super Smash Bros. Devs are introducing the Mouthful mode, where Kirby takes the shape of the object and uses it to his own advantage. Like a vending machine or a car, now we know Kirby has its limits. And you can actually play the entire campaign in co-op mode using Bandana Waddle-Dee and copycat Kirby's abilities as well. If you're curious, you can download a demo for free and try it out in co-op as well. And speaking of Smash, I kind of actually think of this as a sequel of the events from the Smash Bros. Ultimate campaign, where everyone but Kirby vanishes from Earth, remember? One could dream big, I guess. Ghostwire Tokyo, and a video game I believe will give us a lot of good memes and spectacular screenshots, is this cool action game from Tango Gameworks, the same artist who brought us the Evil Within saga. The population of Tokyo has disappeared and the city is infested with yokai creatures all around. Brought up by a dangerous occultist, it's up to you and another powerful ally to defeat the forces of evil. So the first time I wasn't that optimistic with this title and had zero idea of what it was all about, but with impressions I've seen and read is far more tempting now. It's a first-person action game focused on spells and stealth mechanics in an open world with an inspired version of Tokyo. Of course, it has Shibuya Crossing, the iconic architecture of the city, temples, and a lot of things that sparked joy in me back then when I was there. I give extra kudos to how original the art direction and world design looks. I hope they'll bring background to all these urban legends in Japanese culture, which it actually doesn't occur that often. Also, I'm eager to see the ray tracing and 60 FPS in action, which I think is pretty much difficult to achieve. Also, the game will feel amazing while playing it with the DualSense, which I personally think devs are doing an excellent job overall. Weird West, last but not least, at the very end of March, we have this dark fantasy RPG that reminds me of Wasteland and the first Fallout games. As Wolf-Eye Studios stated, the Wild West of cowboys combined with fantasy elements. These folks are veterans who previously worked on Prey and this Hunter franchise, so you pretty much will have a lot of freedom when it comes to dialogue with characters, spare them, kill them, and of course there's plenty of choices that will vastly change the world you're living in. Apparently there are like 5 paths to choose from and a vast amount of abilities and weapons to choose from. I really dig this idea and I actually wonder if they got inspired by the Undead Nightmare DLC from Red Dead Redemption. So that's all folks, please let me know down in the comments which of these games you will try the most, which of these games you're interested in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and please visit us on social media on this wonderful YouTube channel to learn more about my upcoming projects. Stay safe and take care.